Name, Xiangzi. Gender, male. Nationality, Han. Born on September 18, 1990. The person who spoke was a Western man, middle-aged, very strong, in a black suit, with a curly back, and a slightly higher hairline. The man turned the ID card over, raised his eyebrows, and said, "Well, the ID card of the People's Republic of Flower Planters, and the national emblem, the details are in place." He raised his eyes to look at the young man across the table, and smiled jokingly, "That's interesting, there is no problem with the text, but the full name of Oriental China is different, the design of the national emblem is also different, and the specifications and materials of their ID cards are not like this. In other words, no government on this planet will recognize your ID card. What's more interesting is that you were born in 1990, but now it is 1994, so, you are 4 years old now." He shook his ID card and made an exaggerated puzzled expression, "So I'm curious, who would make such a completely useless fake document? And there are currencies in your wallet that don't exist in the world." "Mr. Xiangzi, well, let's call it that for now, maybe it's the real name, maybe. Can you answer my question?" Across the table, sat a young Asian man, dressed in very ordinary, very common cheap casual clothes. His hands were handcuffed to the handle of the seat. Yes, he was in the interrogation room, being interrogated. The young man, namely Xiangzi, said without any emotion on his face, "I don't know. Of all the answers, I don't like this one the most. I can't help it. I've heard too many of them saying I don't know, it's so annoying." The man in the suit said, shaking his head. Suddenly he winked at Xiangzi, smiled and said, "But I like your explanation to the police before, amnesia, wow, this answer, it's perfect, amnesia, forget, you need to tell a lie to cover it up, but you don't need it, you have amnesia, a lie is enough." Xiangzi asked lightly, "So, you are not a policeman?" "That's right, my department is in charge of dealing with more special things. Oh, maybe you have heard of it, we are called Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistic Support Bureau. It's a mouthful, do you have any impression?" "Without. Well, we also have an abbreviation called SHIELD." Xiangzi did not respond. The man in the suit raised his brows, "It's great, I lost my memory, it's okay, let's talk about it." He picks up a cell phone that's on the table. It's a very advanced technology. Although it's out of battery and I haven't found a suitable charging port yet, it doesn't matter. It's just a matter of time. He shook the phone and said with a smile, "Although I don't know what this thing is called, it has a camera, a display screen, and speaker components, so it is obvious that it is a spy that integrates camera, communication, and recording equipment, and maybe other functions. I really envy you, we still use this thing." As he said that, he took out a small thing from his waist, digital pager. "There is another thing that can make phone calls, it is like a brick and expensive, and it claims to be an epoch-making communication device, tisk tisk, research funds are full dog." Xiangzi said, "You think I'm a spy?" "To be precise, a spy of a terrorist organization with cutting-edge technology. After all, you showed up at the scene of the explosion, and Dr. Elias Starr and his wife were both killed. Whoa, look, you still have organization logo, this pattern looks like a flower or a scallop, what does Hawaii mean?" Xiangzi's eyes darkened slightly, and he asked inappropriately, "The child, that little girl, Ava, how is she?" "That's not your concern." The man in the suit shook his head, raised a finger, and said with a smile, "But I can tell you good news, SHIELD is very good at treating amnesia, of course, not here, trust me, you won't like those treatment plans, yes, so, I sincerely hope that a miracle will appear on your body, that you have healed yourself, and everyone is happy, how about it? Otherwise, we have to change the place for treatment." Xiangzi turned his head to look at the wall, and muttered, "The energy has moved." The man in the suit raised his eyebrows. "Excuse me, what did you say?" Xiangzi sighed, "Agent? Agent, agent. I also want to know who I am, where I am, and what happened to me, so these 2 days, I have been very cooperative with the police, and I will answer whatever they ask, and take me away." "It's okay, I thought I cooperated." The man in the suit suddenly interrupted, "Then continue to cooperate. Believe me, this is the best choice. I just lost my memory, not a fool." Xiangzi shook his head, and he glanced at the man in the suit. "Have you read the police's interrogation record?" "Certainly." Xiangzi stared at the other party with a strange expression. "Then you should know that I have some memories, how should I put it? Fragments of memories." The man in the suit smiled. "About your memories of fighting on the battlefield? You want to tell me that you are dangerous because you have been on the battlefield? My friend, I am also a veteran. I have been to Laoyu." "No." Xiangzi shook his head. "I want to tell you that I have something to hide." "About what?" "About, what kind of enemy I'm fighting." "Hee, what kind?" Before the man in the suit finished speaking, Xiangzi suddenly stepped on the edge of the table, and the long table moved sideways and hit the man in the suit directly. However, the force of this kick seemed to be beyond common sense. The table did not fly and moved forward smoothly, but the things on the table were affected by the huge inertia, and flew backward towards Xiangzi. The man in the suit slammed into the wall with his chair. The wall cracked and exposed red bricks. At the same time as Xiangzi kicked his foot, his hands suddenly rose, and the chains of the 2 handcuffs broke directly, without even a process of deformation, stretching and breaking of the chains. In other words, Xiangzi's force was too great, causing that the process happened too fast to be seen. Moreover, his skin was not damaged at all, and it seemed that his skin was rough and thick, which was a bit exaggerated. At the same moment, ID cards, wallets, mobile phones, documents, pens, flew towards Xiangzi. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. When he stood up, he just caught his own things and stuffed them into his trouser pockets. All this happened in less than a second. And the 2 agents standing outside the interrogation room in charge of guarding just heard a loud noise. When the 2 turned around, pulled out their guns, and stretched out their hands to the doorknob, there was another loud bang. The iron door flew out of the door frame and hit the 2 agents. The huge force brought them to hit the corridor wall and passed out. In the smoke and dust, Xiangzi stood behind the door frame. Xiangzi sprawled on the ground, stretched out his hand to observe the 2 directions of the corridor with the bright mirror of the handcuffs, and then retracted. The movement was so fast that the people outside couldn't react. 2 black suits, 1 rookie and 1 veteran, 7 policemen, all with guns, 2 veterans, the rest are in a state of emergency stress dazed. There is a window at the end of the corridor. Muttering, Xiangzi came to the man in the suit. Stepping up to him, he took out the pistol, magazines, documents, wallet and handcuff keys from him. The man in the suit didn't faint, he just vomited blood and trembled, his eyes fixed on Xiangzi. "Sorry, I used a little too much force, but don't worry, you won't die. There is no rupture of internal organs, just a few broken ribs. It just happens to be on a long vacation, Agent John Garrett," Xiangzi said, putting John's ID was closed and stuffed into his pocket, and the remaining handcuffs on his wrists were untied and thrown away. John managed to speak. "What are you talking about, what?" Xiangzi tilted his head. "What do you want to say? What kind of enemy battle?" Xiangzi frowned and sighed. "Those enemies are really, very, very, ugly. So compared to those enemies, you are very cute. Goodbye, agent of SHIELD." The police bell rang loudly in the police station. Some people were unconscious, some screamed while covering their bleeding hands, and there was a curly-haired fat Hispanic man shouting loudly, who seemed to be the leader of the police station. Bastard! Damn bastard! What are you doing in a daze? Hurry up and chase after him. Chief, I suggest you think again. A middle-aged police officer approached and said in a low voice. The director narrowed his eyes and said angrily, What do you mean? I knocked out 5 SHIELD agents. There are so many of my police officers, and then ran away swaggeringly. In my police station. My territory. What do you want me to think about? Boss, look at my gun. You'd better not play tricks on me. Well, I checked my gun, and other people's guns, and the guy fired 11 shots, and every one of them hit our barrel, or rather, went into the chamber. I was lucky my gun didn't explode because I was afraid that it would run out of bullets when it went off. The other guys were not so lucky. I swear to God I have never seen this kind of shooting. Never heard of it. This joke is not funny. The chief's eyes widened. Boss. I don't joke about this kind of thing, that guy, he's showing mercy. He's moving like a ghost. We couldn't even aim at him, and he fired a few random shots in such a fast movement, just shot a bullet into our gun. He could have killed us all with just one muzzle tilt. He didn't. That guy was a good baby before SHIELD, and I swear to God I could keep my hair if my 3 kids were half as good as he was, but now SHIELD. Off that freak and it's SHIELD trouble. So, boss, we're just the police in Argentina, this monster, leave it to the agents, we're paid by the Argentine government, the Argentine people, not SHIELD. You are a poor policeman, you should run for president. I will think about it. Okay, you're right, but, the appearance still needs to be done, understand what I mean? Understood, boss, I'll have someone draw up a wanted warrant, and then I'll say hello to my brothers. Highway. SHIELD can really cure me. The one who spoke was a little Hispanic girl, who looked about 6 or 7 years old, holding a teddy bear in her arms. Her name is Ava, Ava Star. At this time, she was in a driving black car, and the person sitting with her in the back seat was a black middle-aged man. The man's name is Bill Foster, and he's a scientist who works for SHIELD. In the driver's and co-pilot's seats, there are 2 men in black suits, they are agents of SHIELD. Bill gently stroked the little girl's hair, and said with a smile, Yes, SHIELD can do it, and we will cure your disease. The little girl blinked her eyes and said, But that Uncle Angel, as soon as he touches me, I'll be fine. Why? Answering the child's questions made Bill a little embarrassed, so he could only reluctantly come, Uncle Angel? Well, first of all, it was a coincidence. At present, your seizures are random and uncontrollable. It just happened when he met you. Now, your body is stable. So, he is not important. Besides, he is not an angel, he has no wings. Ava shook her head, No, I can feel it, it's him who made me feel better. Also, I prayed, and he appeared, of course he is Uncle Angel. Bill smiled and responded casually, Ava, are you sure? Ava nodded vigorously, Yeah. Well, let's be more specific. I prayed, God, please help me, and then Uncle Angel appeared, and he was luminous. Well, that's not what I'm talking about, I'm saying, he touched you and how you felt at the time. That's, I have that in me, that. Quantum energy. That's it, cool and bright. It's quantum energy. Cold death can be bright. Okay, you go on. He also has it in his body, but it's not the same as mine, but his, can light up, make mine light up, change. I don't know how to say it, anyway, it's better, it's not uncomfortable anymore. Bill was a little stunned, and said in surprise, Ava, do you really feel the energy in his body? You don't believe me? Ava said displeased. Of course I believe, if, so this is, stable. He can make your molecular imbalance stable. Terminate your quantum phase transition state. Bill's eyes brightened, and he smiled. It seems that he is very important, we need him. Oops! Ava screamed, and saw a lot of double images of her hands suddenly appeared, as if there were a few more hands, disappearing and appearing at times, and they were nothingness. They could pass through real objects and overlap together, but they did not affect each other, such as, her hand went through the teddy bear but couldn't pick it up. Her hand, as if it didn't exist, could be seen again. Bill hurriedly comforted, "Don't panic, Ava, try it, you can control it." Ava panicked, "No, this time, no. It's okay for the first few times, you are a brave and good girl, you can do it. But, it's different this time. I'm so uncomfortable." Xiangzi hurriedly walked in the bustling market, and when he passed the clothes and hats stall, he took a baseball cap and put it on his head, and took out $100 from his wallet to pay the bill. "You don't need to look for it." The stall owner blew a kiss happily, and Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com said in Spanish, "The generous rich man." Xiangzi also muttered in Spanish, "Thank you, Mr. John Garrett." Seeing a young man with curly hair sitting on a motorcycle, Xiangzi walked over. "Your car was commandeered by S.H.I.E.L.D. He handed Agent John all the money in his wallet. "Man, this money is not enough, I have a new car." Xiangzi pushed the young man away, and at the same time threw the SHIELD certificate on the young man. "Go to SHELD for the rest. After all, drive away." Bill is still trying to appease, "Ava, calm down, you can do it, believe in yourself." Ava pouted and shook her head violently, "I'm so uncomfortable. I want Uncle Angel. God, let Uncle Angel help me, Ava is so uncomfortable." Bill is a scientist without children. Coaxing children is really not his strong point, and he feels overwhelmed. "Ava. First, you have to believe in science. Second, angels have wings. Third, even if they have wings, it doesn't prove that they are angels. They may be Victoria's Secret models." Victoria's Secret angel appeared in 1999, little change it. However, Ava simply ignored Bill's words. And everyone doesn't know that the original historical process of this world has changed because of one more person. At least, the orphan Ava, who lost her father and mother, has changed in the object of her heart. Bill had no choice but to say, "Okay, let's go back and find the suspect first." "Hey!" Ava suddenly stopped, and then said with eyes full of hope, "The prayer has been fulfilled. Uncle Angel is here." "What? Uncle Angel is here? I can feel it. It's bright. Soon. It's getting closer. Can you feel his position?" Bill looked disbelieving. "Yes." Ava nodded repeatedly. Bill patted the back of the passenger seat and said, "Hawk, contact John." The agent named Hawk took out a simple and big brick-like communication device, pulled out the antenna, and said, "Group K, please answer, Group K, please answer, damn it. John and the others have 5 of them. Go and have a bowel movement. Are you ready? Car B, Car C, change formation and observe the rear." Car B received. Car C received. A black car that was in front of them gave way, Ava's car passed, and the car in front was driving side by side with another car behind. Come, come. Ava was very happy. "You heard what this kid said." Bill rushed to the agent in the front row. Car A, a suspicious target was found behind. Driving a motorcycle, approaching at high speed. Hawk said loudly, "Level 2 combat readiness. Warning shooting. No retreat, kill allowed. Can't be shot. He's very important." Bill said hastily. Ava was a little dazed, then thought of something, and said angrily, "What are you doing? You are all bad guys. Amidst the roar of the motor, a motorcycle with a speed of over 120 per hour galloped on the road. Overspeed is fine. Vehicles along the way were constantly being overtaken by motorcyclists, causing many drivers to shout and curse, "This is a madman." And the driver is Xiangzi, who is wearing a baseball cap backwards. The kid is up ahead. Xiangzi squinted his eyes, and he saw someone leaning out of the window of a black car in front of him, and that person was holding a miniature submachine gun in his hand, similar to MP5. Xiangzi drew his gun and shot. His movements were crisp and quick. With a gunshot, the agent's microdash flew out of his hand. With this distance, coupled with the high speed, it seems that it is still a bit difficult to shoot into the barrel of the gun. You can only hit the body of the gun. Xiangzi said with a little regret in his tone. If the agent who was shot in the middle of the gun heard it, he would go crazy. He was already frightened by this kind of shooting, but the other party was still not satisfied. The opponent is shooting. Attack! Attack! The agent drew out his pistol at the same time, but was still shot by Xiangzi. The agents in the other car also suffered the same thing. Even if they brought the guns of the driving agents, the result was the same. Xia knew that as long as they saw the other party's gun, they would open fire, and they would definitely hit. "Do you still have a gun?" The agent yelled frantically. It's not enough to understand his doubts about life at the moment without shouting. What kind of marksmanship is this? Riding a motorcycle with a speed of 120 per hour, you can still shoot a gun in the hand of a target with a speed of 80 per hour. It's scary. I still have one in my underwear. You need to ask my wife first. The agent driving the car also shouted frantically, and he was in the same mood. Just a few shots in a few seconds, the cognition of these agents has been subverted. They are all experts in shooting guns, and they all know that the most difficult thing in shooting is to shoot a moving target in motion, and now it is moving at a high speed. This is not a movie. How could there be such a scary aim in reality? Even if you make a movie, you will be scolded for being too ridiculous, but, this is the gun god? What the is a gun god? Boss! We're out of weapons. All the guns were blown away. He's a super sharpshooter. Listening to the report from the communicator, Agent Hawk's veins tensed up, and he said angrily, "Are you riding in a stroller? Hit him!" Just at this time, Xiangzi had rushed between the two cars. The two driving agents seized the opportunity tacitly, and slammed the steering wheel, intending to pinch Xiangzi. Of course they didn't care if pinched to death. Let's talk about it. When Xiangzi was about to be knocked down, Xiangzi squeezed the brakes, and he flew out with the inertia of the sudden brake, and the two cars collided with the motorcycle by a hair's breadth. Xiangzi, who was in the air, rolled over and fired 4 shots. The hoods of the two cars had 2 more holes, and then the front of the car burst into black smoke, caught fire, and the engine broke down. I don't even need to think about it, I know where to shoot to kill the engine. Is this a fighting instinct? What did I do in the past? Xiangzi, who was thinking, landed on the ground. As soon as his feet touched the ground, he jumped out, and his movements were done in one go, without a moment's pause. And his running speed surpassed that of cars. Ha! I run faster than a car. In other words, if there is no speeding car, it doesn't matter. I'll see where you go. Xiangzi was a little excited, and the speed of chasing him shocked all the witnesses on the road. Boss! Our car broke down, and he chased after him. He ran faster than the car. I saw it. Hawk turned around and looked behind the car, drew out his pistol and gestured at Bill. "Bill, lean down, you are blocking my shooting range." Apparently he was going to shoot in the car, without showing his head. "Pay attention to us." Bill lay down and covered Ava's head with his hands. "Don't worry, I'm a professional sharpshooter." Hawk raised his gun and aimed at Xiangzi, who was chasing after the car. Although Xiangzi didn't see it, his body became alert the moment he was targeted. It seemed that he had an amazing sense of crisis when he was targeted. The body's reaction surpassed his thinking, and he ran to the left in an instant, and at the same time Hawk also fired. The rear windshield was shattered, but otherwise the bullet hit nothing. At this time, Xiangzi's route was being blocked by the side of the car body, entering Hawk's visual blind spot. Hawk didn't panic. In his opinion, this was a godsend opportunity. It doesn't matter if you don't see it, because the next second, or less than a second, the opponent will enter the side shooting range, just aim at the side window in advance. He didn't even plan to wait until he saw it before shooting. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com directly estimated the time and shot. It has to be said that Hawk has rich experience and acted decisively. However, after firing several shots and smashing the side windshield, nothing appeared. Where is he? Hawk glanced quickly, but found nothing. Boom! Suddenly a fist smashed the front door window, and at the same time hit Hawk's head, knocking him unconscious. It turned out that after Xiangzi entered the blind spot, he flew forward and rolled, and arrived at the car door. While grabbing the doorknob, he punched it in from bottom to top. This was not over yet. He opened his fist and grabbed Hawk's neck, opened the door with the other hand. Xiangzi's body hung on the car door, and as the door opened, Hawk was pulled out of the car. And Xiangzi opened the car door, exerted force on his waist, and moved his body laterally, sliding onto the hood, with both feet out, smashing the front windshield and kicking on the head of the agent in the driver's seat. His body also slid into the car. The whole process was like drawing a circle. Everything followed the force of drawing the circle, or inertia. Xiangzi's battle rhythm was natural, without sloppiness. With one hand controlling the steering wheel, the other hand bypassed the unconscious agent to open the car door, and pushed him out as well. Fortunately, the battle along the way frightened other vehicles, or slowed down, bypassed or stopped, but did not cause the two agents to encounter a car accident, although man-made accidents were inevitable. Bill in the back seat looked dumbfounded. Although he was a scientist, working in SHIELD had allowed him to see too many strong men and strong women, but this one was too fierce. Ava was very happy and shouted excitedly, "Uncle Angel! You are back to save Ava!" Seeing Xiangzi looking at him, Bill hurriedly said, "I'm not an agent. I'm..." Boom! Xiangzi knocked him out with a punch. "I don't care who you are." Xiangzi had already seen the abnormal shape of Ava's hands, so he stopped the car and stretched out his hands directly. When the hands of the two approached, the multiple ghosts of Ava's hands began to retract, and at the same time, a little golden light gushed out from Xiangzi's hand, which was absorbed by Ava's hand. Soon, Ava's hand returned to normal. "Uncle Angel, you are so kind, Ava is not feeling bad anymore." Ava looked at Bill, who passed out again, and said, "Actually, Uncle Bill is also a good person. Maybe they are all good people." Xiangzi opened the glove box, rummaged around, stuffed the things he needed into his pockets, and got out of the car. He went around to the back and opened the car door, flipped over Bill, took the money away and picked up Ava. Ava said, "But Uncle Angel is also a good person. Why do good people beat good people? The world of adults is very troublesome. Good people sometimes beat good people, and bad people also beat bad people. But now..." Xiangzi raised his eyebrows and said helplessly, "They think I am a bad person, but I can't explain it, and they won't believe me when I say it. I can't tell. Ava, can you do me a favor?" While talking, I opened the trunk and was very satisfied. As expected of an agent's car, there are some good things. I dumped the things I needed into a suitcase that only contained clothes, and took them out, which should belong to Bill. "Well, Ava will help Uncle Angel prove it." Xiangzi smiled wryly and shook his head, "Thank you, but, forget it, let's leave here first." After all, Xiangzi took Ava down the highway, picked small roads, turned east and west, and at his speed, and turned over several dead ends. he quickly disappeared from the sight of witnesses. 10 minutes later, the two stayed under the bridge hole of a road bridge along the river. No one found them, and they were safe for the time being. Xiangzi knelt down, looked at Aiwa, and said, Aiwa, uncle, forgot a lot of things, do you remember what uncle did before? Ava doesn't know. Okay, so we've never seen it before, have we? Just before that explosion. Well, I haven't seen Uncle Angel before. How did the uncle appear there? Appeared in the light, when Ava prayed. Light? What kind of light? A lot of colorful lights appeared in Dad's machine, and time seemed to slow down at that time. Slower? Are you sure? Yeah, it's so slow, it's a bit like in the movie, everything changes slowly. Then there was an explosion, and then the Uncle Angel appeared from the light, and the Uncle Angel's body was also glowing, and then the Uncle Angel saw Ava, and then helped Ava block the flying things. Xiangzi frowned, he didn't remember any of this, that is to say, the reason for his amnesia hadn't appeared yet. And after that? After that, there were a lot of messy lights, many of which were blocked by the Angel Uncle, but some of the lights passed through the body of the Angel Uncle, and then penetrated into my body. There was another messy light that penetrated into the head of the Uncle Angel. Get out again, and then, Uncle Angel fainted. Xiangzi nodded. He had the memory after waking up from a coma. He saw a little girl with a double image on her body. A man and a woman died beside her. There was a fire burning around her, and there were signs of an explosion. He comforted the sad little girl when I met her. The strange phenomenon in the little girl's body disappeared, and then the firefighters arrived, and the police arrived. Drilling into my head and coming out. It seems that the weird light has affected my brain and messed up my memory. My experience is incomplete, but my ability doesn't seem to be forgotten. I still have common sense, and maybe these and my experience it's not the same, it's not in the same place in the brain. Anyway, it's a blessing that I didn't become an idiot. Xiangzi muttered to himself. Then Ava, did you have a double image on your body? The situation where you can't touch anything is just before the explosion. Ava shook her head. No, Uncle Bill said that I was divided, unbalanced, which led to the desire to cheat. Death? Unbalanced? Oh, molecular imbalance, quantum phase transition. Yeah, the division is not balanced, and I want to cheat. Well, does he know what caused it? He said that Dad was doing a cold death experiment, and then Uncle Angel destroyed the experiment. What? Everything is being blamed on me. Xiangzi said angrily. Uncle Angel, you don't have a pot on you. Uncle doesn't like to take the blame, let's not talk about this, there is a problem with the experiment, so, he said that the molecular imbalance. Well, Uncle Bill said that Ava was influenced by Liang Shining Liang, and it became like this. Cold death, quantum energy is probably the reason for this thing. Xiangzi nodded, and asked again, then Ava, can you control quantum energy? It's molecular imbalance, quantum phase transition. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but Ava doesn't like being cold and wants to lie, it's so uncomfortable. What kind of uncomfortable method? It's just, the body seems to be torn apart, put together again, torn apart, put together again, non-stop. Thank you for silence. By the way, Uncle Angel, you also have cool death energy, don't you feel uncomfortable? It's okay, how do you know? Ava can feel it, Ava will know where you are. Xiangzi was surprised, this little girl was just like him. Yes, Xiangzi could also sense Ava's position, and it was because of this perception that she was able to chase her precisely all the way. At the same time, Xiangzi can also feel the energy in Ava's body, and he can also perceive the quantum energy in his body, but he has no molecular imbalance, and cannot use quantum energy. Only when Ava has a molecular imbalance, the two are close. The quantum energy in his body will be triggered automatically. No, it should be said that Ava absorbed his quantum energy at that time. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com. It is completely out of Xiangzi's control. I'm sure, I also have quantum energy in my body, so, what are the other two energies? Yes, Xiangzi clearly perceives that there are three inexplicable energies in his body, but he can't use them and can't control them. Those energies just exist. Moreover, he couldn't remember how the other two kinds of energy came from. Uncle Angel. Xiangzi recovered from his thoughts, nodded and said, "Well, you say. Can you take Ava to find Mom and Dad?" Didn't that Uncle Bill tell you? Or the police, your parents, they?" Ava nodded and said, "I know, Mom and Dad are dead. But Mom said that after people die, there will be angels to pick them up to heaven." "Uncle, you are an angel, take me to heaven, okay?" Looking at the innocent eyes of the child in front of him, Xiangzi didn't know how to answer this cruel question for a while. Xiangzi gritted his teeth and said, "Uncle, not an angel, really not. But Ava prayed, and you showed up. That's a coincidence, an accident, my son. Uncle is human. You see, Uncle has no wings." "But Uncle, you said you forgot a lot of things. Maybe you forgot where you put your wings, and you forgot that you are an angel. You are really divine logic." Xiangzi smiled bitterly, shook his head and said, "Okay, but Uncle doesn't remember how to get to heaven." "But, if Uncle can remember his past identity, he is indeed an angel and knows how to get there if it's heaven. Uncle promises to take you there, okay?" "Lagu, it's shameless to lie to a child." "Okay, Lagu, it's shameless to lie to a child. So, Ava, do you have any relatives here? Grandparents, uncles and aunts?" Ava shook her head, "They all went to heaven." "Hiss. Now the problem is complicated." Xiangzi scratched his head. Ava said, "I'm an orphan now." "Well, Uncle Angel, will you adopt me?" Xiangzi felt dizzy for a while. "Orphan, adopt, Ava, you know a lot of words. How old are you?" 7 years old. "I don't remember raising a child. God, how much does a 7-year-old know? I don't know if I should understand. I heard the police uncles say that Ava is an orphan and needs to be adopted, and there are orphanages and so on." Okay, let's talk about the adoption later. Strictly speaking, the relationship between us is hijacking and kidnapping, and I will become a wanted criminal." "Well, I should already be. There will be countless policemen and agents who will come to arrest me. And based on my performance today, I guess they will send special forces next time." "Oh, that's great." Xiangzi finished his speech quickly, rubbed his face vigorously, and showed a very tangled smile. "Ava, your molecular imbalance, how often does it happen?" "I don't know, many times a day anyway." "Uncle Angel, what's wrong with you?" "I'm thinking. I don't know who I am, I forget the past. Well, I have to do something to live." Xiangzi looked up, as if he had made up his mind, and said seriously, "Ava, there are 3 things that need to be resolved now. First, don't call me Uncle Angel anymore, just call me Uncle Angel, okay?" "All right." Second, are you a brat? Ava's a kid, not a bear. Okay, are you a good kid? Yeah, Ava is the best kid. I believe you. Third, do you want to follow Uncle? This is very important, you can't lie. I want to. I really want to. Uncle is the closest person to Ava. Well, except for Mom and Dad. Xiangzi smiled, he understood why Ava said that, because of quantum energy, there was a special connection between the two, like an invisible rope. As an adult, I understand that this is a mysterious phenomenon caused by accident, but children don't care so much, they only feel close. Okay, then Ava must be obedient, if not. Ava quickly said, Ava promises to be a good kid. Very good. Xiangzi opened Bill's suitcase, look at the harvest, map, watch, binoculars, lockpick, saber, spring dagger, pistol, silencer, 2 magazines, shirt, pants, suit, canvas jacket, it's a pity that no children wear it. Xiangzi took out Bill's shirt and wrapped it around Ava's neck. Uncle, this dress is too big. It's not for you to wear, let's play a game. What game? Ava pretends to be a boy's game, so change her hairstyle first. Is it fun? That depends on how well Ava pretends. Xiangzi said, drew out his saber, and cut Ava's long hair with the knife. After a while, Xiangzi looked at the short-haired version of Ava and sighed, I can be sure that hairdressing is not my specialty. Uncle, do I look like a boy now? Well, it's a bit sloppy, let's add something. Xiangzi tore off a large piece of Bill's shirt, used it as a headscarf for Ava to tie on her head, and nodded with satisfaction, this time is good, cool kid. Dr. Bill Foster, where are you going? One of the agents asked. Bill was very upset, where are you going? I just got beaten up. So I desperately need a drink. Is there a problem? Or does the field team need me as a scientist? Sorry, well, you stay safe. I'm safe. If that guy is interested in me, I won't stand here talking nonsense to you. Bill left the hospital, walked down the street, turned a few blocks, and stopped in front of a public phone booth. His expression was a little tangled, and finally he picked up the phone and dialed a number. It's me, Bill. Yes, the last thing I want to do is ask you for help. Listen Hank, Elias is dead, and his wife. I don't care about the things between you and Elias, and the conflicts between me and you. These are all adults' business. Now, I'm talking about children's business. Elias' daughter, 7 years old, named Ava. Why? Ha, we all work in SHIELD, okay, you quit, but you should know the skills of those agents. 11 agents were solved by him alone, and he didn't kill anyone, which means what? That's not his full strength at all. Hank, if you don't wear a battle suit, you will be beaten all over the ground by him. He is very suspected of being a terrorist. Of course, I am not a detective, but the child was snatched away by him. Well, I don't really believe it. Some people, I feel that something is wrong, I want to help the child and take care of her, but I'm afraid some people don't think so. Oh come on. Hope still has you. Ava has nothing. How dare you say you have no responsibility at all? You fired Elias. Good. How I regret calling the great Hank Pym. Bill hung up the phone angrily, gritted his teeth and said, this conceited bastard. American mansion. The middle-aged Hank Pym put down the phone. He looked at the framed photo on the wall. The photo showed a family of 3, including a younger Hank and a beautiful woman. You reading www.youcanshoe.com and a lovely girl. Alas! Hank sighed, his fingers caressed the beautiful woman in the photo, and then slid to the girl's face. After a while, he shrugged his shoulders, just treat it as a vacation. Picking up the phone again, she dialed a number, Hi, Eve, help me arrange a plane ticket to Argentina recently, which city? Whatever, the sooner the better. Building. A blond man stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking at the scenery outside, and said in a slow tone, the little girl's ability is very useful, and the man's fighting power sounds exaggerated. Very good, we both want it. A bald man stood behind him and asked, so, is it ours to use the power of S.H.I.E.L.D? The blond man said, shield is our eyes and ears, but to arrest people, use our people to bring the Winter Soldier, remember, I want to live. Long live Hydra! Yes. Long live Hydra. Darkroom. Not many opportunities to see SHIELD jokes, so, how many Black Widows do we have in Argentina? 2. Look, if it's beneficial. Palace. SHIELD lost in Argentina? That's interesting. Your Majesty, do we need to care about this matter? Let's check with our people in Argentina to see if it has anything to do with Ulysses Crow. A dark-skinned hand holds two photos, one is Xiangzi's and the other is Ava's. The hand shook the photo, then let go, and the photo landed on a document with the title The Avengers Plan. Hi, my name is Xiangzi. Xiangzi was sitting on a folding chair, and on the folding chair opposite him was a middle-aged white man who was a bit bald. At this time, they were in a windowless room, which was a little damp, and the interior tone was cold under the reflection of the old cold light. I will give you all my money. I have a wife and children. Please let me go, please. The middle-aged white man begged bitterly. Well, Mr. Almi, although I don't know if this is your real name, let's call it that first, it's just a title. Do you smoke? Xiangzi said, taking out his cigarette case and gesturing at the other party. No thanks, I don't smoke. Whatever. Xiangzi lit a cigarette and said, Mr. Almi, I know you are a spy. No, sir, you must be mistaken, I'm just an insurance seller. Shhhhh. Xiangzi made a silent gesture and said with a smile, don't deny it too quickly, let me make a statement first, I will torture you, but don't worry, I don't ask who you work for, I don't ask you which organization you belong to, don't ask what secrets you got, don't ask what you planned. Almi looked blank, sir, I don't understand what you mean. Xiangzi waved his hand indifferently, you will understand, I am not very good at torture, I am still learning, but trust me, I can always get what I want. Don't worry, everyone I tortured is alive and well, there are no sequelae of physical health, even psychological problems. Please, let me go, I have a family. Xiangzi interrupted, what I want is very simple, just tell me, your skills, about reconnaissance, counter-reconnaissance, safe house, escape route, hiding yourself, opening doors and picking locks, etc. In short, what a professional spy should do, the skills you have mastered, as well as the way of thinking of spies, as long as you teach me, everything is fine. What? I suggest you teach me, it will make you less trouble, you are not the first one to teach me, and you will not be the last one. Moreover, you can teach me fake ones, dig a hole for me, no problem, learning requires practice, for those who are eager to learn, they may not remember the correct questions, but they will definitely remember if they are wrong. Are you, a lunatic? Maybe. Xiexia curled his lips and pointed to his own head, sometimes I also doubt, I am afraid that my brain is really not normal, really, I feel that I am getting more and more perverted, or it's sick. It can't be helped, the experiments I did are a little too overdone. Uncle. Hey. Xiangzi's memory of memories was recalled by Ava, yes, the previous scene was a fragment of his incomplete memory. I want to pee. Hold on for a while, we'll be there soon. At this moment, Xiangzi and AIWA were sitting on the same bus. AIWA looked like a boy now. Both of them had changed their clothes. Both Xiangzi and AIWA were wearing hats and glasses, which were flat. The style is very rustic, these are bought on the road of Xiangzi. Xiangzi was still carrying a black travel bag. Bill's suitcase was thrown away by him before, and Ava was also carrying a children's backpack. The car stopped, Xiangzi got out of the car with Ava in his arms, like a father and son. After finding a public restroom, the two entered the men's restroom. Ava, can you take off your pants and pee yourself? Ava felt underestimated, Ava is 7 years old, she has already peed herself. Ava is awesome, let's go in. Xiangzi opened the door of the cubicle and let Ava go to the cubicle for convenience, while he searched for the cleaning tools in the public toilet, found a bottle of disinfectant in the tube, and put it away in his sleeve. When the two of them walked out of the public toilet, Xiangzi hung the disinfectant upside down and sprinkled the disinfectant while walking. "Uncle, what did you spill? It smells so bad." "Disinfectant can interfere with the sense of smell of police dogs and help us buy more time." Throwing the bottle into the trash can, Xiangzi looked at Ava and raised his eyebrows. "Ava, do you want to learn something?" Okay, are you as good as the uncle?" "Well, is it difficult?" "I don't know if it's difficult or not, but it doesn't matter, as much as you learn, maybe, you can use it in the future." I remember an old grandpa said that he didn't expect that what he learned 20 years ago, in 20 years later, it helped him a lot. The future is unknowable, and there is no harm in learning more. Ava needs to learn. Okay, let's start with what Uncle is looking for. Uncle is looking for transportation. This is very important. Transportation can save time, allow us to rest, hide our whereabouts, and buy time. While walking and teaching, Xiangzi stopped in front of a car with a very common style. After making sure that there was no surveillance around and there were few people around, he squatted down and quickly removed the license plate and stuffed it into Ava's small school bag. There were very few surveillance cameras in the 1990s, but you have to be careful. Fortunately, the surveillance arrangements are regular, and you can avoid them if you find them. Surveillance can't capture our faces. Well, good, there's a parking lot here, let's go, borrow a car. Entered the parking lot. Luckily, Xiangzi found the same model car as the car with the license plate before, quickly opened the door lock with the unlocker. After getting in the car, he fiddled with it, started the car, and did not forget to tell AI on the way. The baby explained. Finally, after changing the license plate, he started the car and left. Even if the license plate is changed, it is just to buy time. It will be a matter of time before it is discovered. Ava, you remember, no matter what we do, as long as we do it, there will be traces. So this car, the time we use it must not exceed 8 hours, and the routine of changing the license plate cannot be used 3 times in a row. If we want to be completely safe, we can only use the time difference. If our safe time exceeds 72 hours, reading www.yuyuganshu.com will increase the difficulty of finding us by 10 times, or even dozens of times. In the future, as long as we don't make mistakes, leave this country, and then I will go for plastic surgery, you will grow up and have a new identity. After a few years, we will be completely safe. The problem now is how to spend 72 hours safely. Now all the ways to leave the city must be strictly guarded, and the characteristics of us are too obvious. Even if it is disguised, it will be the focus of attention object. Although it is equally dangerous to stay in the city, the manpower of agents and police is limited after all. In such a big city, it was still in the 1990s, and there was not so much surveillance. We still have a chance. So, Ava, how much do you remember? Ava said, I remember it all. Remember everything? Tell me about it. As a result, Ava repeated it verbatim, which surprised Xiangzi. Wow, Ava, your memory is really good. Hey! Ava was very happy to be praised. The child's biological father is a scientist, so, hereditary? Born with good brains? Thanks for guessing. Okay, Uncle wants to reward Ava. Are you hungry? What do you want to eat? Not hungry yet. That's right, it's not dusk yet, so. How about going to the movies? After the movie, I just went to eat. Yeah. No one would have thought that a wanted criminal would still be in the mood to take his children to the movies. And this wanted criminal didn't expect that it wasn't just agents and police who came to arrest him. Ava wants to grow up, wants tickets, wants to collect. Ava is very good, okay. Night. Xiangzi went around the city a few times, found a remote place, stopped the car, carefully cleaned up the traces left on the car, carried the sleeping little girl out, closed the door, and left. This day was exciting enough for the little girl, causing her to sleep deeply at this time. Xiangzi's target is a hardware and grocery store that is only open during the day. I have checked the spot before and it is very safe. Arrived at the destination, picked the lock, entered the house, very skillful. Put Ava on the sofa in the office, and found a blanket to cover the little girl. Then Xiangzi walked around the store, found some daily chemicals in bottles and cans, and started to fiddle with them. Homemade smoke bombs, self-made flash bombs. I know a lot of things, but unfortunately, the memory fragments related to the experience are too messy. I have been on the battlefield, killed people, kidnapped spies to learn skills, and so on. I used to do it. What? He muttered in his mouth, but it didn't affect the work in his hands. Xiangzi seemed to be a skilled worker who had done it countless times. I can fight very well, my physical fitness is extraordinary, my marksmanship is very good, super powerful, but... Xiangzi raised his hand, took a closer look, and said, the marksmanship is practiced. This can be determined from the incomplete memory, and it was practiced in actual combat. But my hands have no calluses at all, which is unreasonable. After pondering for a while, Xiangzi picked up the dagger and cut his finger, but the skin didn't break at all. I made a second cut, this time with more force, but it still didn't break. For the third time, Xiangzi made more efforts. This time the skin was cut open, but only the epidermis was damaged. To be precise, it was the layer of the epidermis, and the transparent layer was not damaged. The cutting feeling is very jerky, too tough, what should I say, rough skin and thick flesh? How did it cause it? Xiangzi sighed, shook his head and said, but one thing is certain, my memories of those battles are not in this era. What happened after the millennium, specifically in the 20s? I can't remember clearly. In addition to Ava's description. So, am I not from this world? Am I from another world? Traveling through time and space? Or am I from the future? It should be impossible in the future. The information on the ID card does not correspond to the reality. Other worlds are more likely. Of course, it's also possible that I'm a lunatic. Some memories seem to be, really what a lunatic would do. These are a bit far away. Check it out slowly in the future. Now you are still a wanted criminal with a child. Ava, on the other hand, has had 6 episodes since the afternoon. The longest interval is 2 hours, and the shortest interval is only 15 minutes. It's completely irregular. Hey! If I'm alone, it's quite easy to escape, but with a child, it's so difficult. But I don't care about her, what about this child? When the attack occurs, the body seems to be torn apart and put back together again, that feeling. There will be a way, there will be. Before dawn, Xiangzi woke up Ava, washed, ate, changed clothes, cleaned up the scene, and left before the owner came. They have a new car, which Xiangzi went out to get in the middle of the night. He continued to drive around the city, not aimlessly. Xiangzi was mainly observing the atmosphere in the city, the intensity of official inspections, and the temporary safe house where he could hide. The situation is not good, the density of police car patrols has increased, and the helicopter can still be seen in the sky. This is not the worst, Xiangzi found that some people were also looking for them with their photos. They didn't look like kind people, nor did they look like police or secret agents. Obviously, the underworld in this city was also dispatched. Xiangzi licked his lips, and said to himself, fortunately, there are more exaggerated scenes in the incomplete memory than this one. After 72 hours, it will be easy to handle. It's almost noon, Ava, are you hungry? Ava played with the telescope and replied, I'm not hungry, I ate chocolate. Xiangzi sighed, you can't eat snacks, especially sweets, I regret buying you snacks. Not next time, Ava promises. If next time. Before Xiangzi finished speaking, a grey car suddenly rushed out of the intersection, ran the red light without any mistakes, and when it turned sharply, it was obviously not good enough to control the car, and hit the front of the second car in front of Xiangzi. Xiangzi stepped on the brakes in time and did not collide with the rear. The car in front could not react fast enough, so he went straight. The accident happened, and the traffic at the intersection was temporarily paralyzed. While secretly calling for trouble, Xiangzi was going to turn the steering wheel to bypass the scene of the car accident. However, the three people who came out of the grey car made Xiangzi understand that there was serious trouble. Those were three men, not unusually long, but they held guns in their hands, and one of them looked like an AK-47. One of the bearded men was looking at a black bag in his hand. The mouth of the bag was split, and two plastic bags fell out, one of which was broken, and white powder flew. At the same time, the direction they came from, sirens approached. Seeing the three gangsters firing in the direction they came, Xiangzi shook his head helplessly, that is to say, because of me. Reading www.youcansha.com's official investigation, these three drug dealers suffered, and they also it hurt me. Therefore, luck is very important, and the plan cannot keep up with the changes. While the gangsters were shooting wildly, they ran over to Xiangzi. Xiangzi pulled out the pistol with the silencer installed. Although it doesn't matter whether there is a silencer or not at this time, there is no need to remove it. Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop, your uncle. His wish came to nothing. The leading gangster pointed his pistol directly at Xiangzi, his eyes were full of madness, and they looked at each other for a moment, making Xiangzi believe that the other party he didn't intend to steal the car without hurting others, that guy didn't care about the lives of others. There was no other choice. Xiangzi fired first, the target was still the opponent's weapon, and the firearms of the three gangsters collapsed first in order. Xiangzi not only shoots the gun fast, but he doesn't even follow the three-point line shooting standard of eyes, sights, and targets. No need, he uses the gun already because of instinct, which is the so-called gun feel. But unlike the agents and the police before, Xiangzi was angry with these three guys, and because of his status as a drug dealer, so when the weapons were blown away, Xiangzi shot them in both hands, crippling their wounds. Human ability. Then he got out of the car and shot each of the thugs who were lying on the ground, hitting the calf so that they couldn't run away. Still, no killing. He turned around and opened the car door, put the backpack on one shoulder, and then picked up Ava with one hand. Looking around, there are too many witnesses on the street at this time, the so-called disguise is meaningless, after all, he has a child with him, and based on this alone, he fits the description of the wanted warrant. Xiangzi took out the homemade smoke bomb and said, Ava, close your eyes and hold your breath. After saying that, he threw out a smoke bomb, and the turbulent gushing white smoke quickly filled the street. The radio waves in the air are constantly transmitting various communication conversations. Among them, there are various notifications about Xiangzi. Shooting on Saint-Will Street. Monitoring found. A highly suspected target appears. The other party used a smoke bomb. Bringing a child. It is highly suspected. A UH-60 helicopter headed straight for the street where the car crashed, the cabin door was opened, and a man in black combat uniform leaned out. He stepped on the edge of the hatch with one foot, and most of his body stood outside the cabin without any scruples. This man has shoulder-length hair, wears a mask and goggles on his face, so he can't see his true face, and his left arm is metal. That is a polished mechanical arm. There is also a red 5-star painting on the deltoid muscle of the robotic arm. After looking down for a moment, the long-haired man said flatly, 8 o'clock. Winter Soldier, what did you find? An inquiring voice came from his earphones. The man, known as the Winter Soldier, replied, "Need to watch." The helicopter turned around, and after a while, the Winter Soldier said, 9 o'clock. After flying for a while, the Winter Soldier suddenly said, "Hover. I found a suspected target, the roof ahead, I'll go down." When approaching the high-rise building, the Winter Soldier jumped straight up without waiting for the plane to land. He didn't care about the height of more than 10 meters. After a few glances at the side of the building, he suddenly turned around and started running. When he reached the side of the building, he jumped up, spanned more than 10 meters, and jumped to another building. Has gone far beyond the scope of normal human beings. At the same time, several military vehicles turned suddenly and drove towards the direction of the Winter Soldier. And an order was issued in the radio wave, "Find the suspected target, dispatch all to surround him. Immediately start misleading, let SHIELD go to another place." Xiangzi hugged Ava and mixed into the crowd, walked for a while, entered the shopping mall, came out from another exit, walked all the way, and entered a secluded alley. There are tall buildings on both sides of the alley, and there are many external air conditioners on the gables of the residential buildings on one side. Xiangzi walked a few steps quickly, jumped up suddenly, stepped on the wall, and put one hand on the external machine to support himself up to the second floor. The movement was quick and effortless. With the same movement, he jumped to the external machine on the third floor, and then to the fourth floor. Just as he was about to continue jumping to the fifth floor, Xiangzi's heart tightened suddenly, and he became alert. Without a moment's hesitation, he suddenly changed direction and rushed forward and downward. Almost at the same time, the place where he was just standing was hit by 3 bullets. When flying to the external machine on the third floor, Xiangzi punched it. The casing of the external machine was directly smashed through by him, and he grasped the supporting parts inside with his hands. At the same time, he turned his body and kicked his feet on the wall. With a sudden force, he forcibly tore the external machine off the wall. While pulling it up, it happened to block the bullets that continued to shoot at him, and he used the external device as a shield. A black shadow fell straight down, and while the pistol in his hand kept firing at Xiangzi, the black shadow stepped on the wall and flew over Xiangzi's head. The muzzle of the gun continued to fire. While Xiangzi was falling, he changed the position of the external device to accurately block the bullets fired from different angles. These two seem to have discussed it. The bullets are always blocked by the external machine. The tacit understanding is very. Of course, it's not a tacit understanding, but the two of them have excellent control over the fighter plane. However, Xiangzi on the defensive side was obviously better. After all, he was still holding a child. And all of this happened when Xiangzi fell from the 4th floor to the ground, and he hadn't even landed yet. The moment it landed, Xiangzi threw the external device out with a flick of his hand, smashing it at the shadow, and at the same time pulled out the pistol in his back. He Ying waved his shiny left arm, and with a bang, the external device flew back again. But this time the external machine was already shattered, and countless fragments flew towards Xiangzi. In order to protect AIWA, Xiangzi had no choice but to turn sideways and shoot at He Ying's pistol, disabling the opponent's weapon first, and Xiangzi was also hit by the debris. But these fragments did not harm Xiangzi. To use game terms, his skin defense was A+. But the speed of the Black Shadow is also extremely fast, and it has already rushed to the front. It was a long-haired man in a black combat uniform with a full metal mechanical arm. Yes, it was the man who was previously known as the Winter Soldier. Xiangzi only had time to fire a shot. He didn't want to kill anyone. He hit the Winter Soldier's leg. Unexpectedly, the opponent's combat uniform was made of bulletproof material. Apparently, the opponent had made sufficient preparations based on intelligence and Xiangzi's performance in marksmanship. The two who were close could only enter the hand-to-hand combat mode. Xiangzi's gun was shot flying, and Xiangzi also fought back, but he could only fight with one hand. Although he was faster than the opponent, he was very passive. After exchanging punches and kicks for less than a second, Xiangzi knew that trouble was serious. The opponent's physical ability is far beyond normal people. Super fighting ability. The most terrible thing is that there is also a mechanical arm, which made Xiangzi really feel pain during several block collisions. But this is not the most troublesome thing. Xiangzi is holding the child in one hand, and can only fight with the other hand with one hand. This does not mean that his strength has been reduced by half, but that he can exert at most 1/10 of his strength. Why? It's very simple, Xiangzi's fighting rhythm has been disrupted. To put it simply, the so-called master of fighting, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com, is to train each fighting move into body memory, and then almost no need to think when fighting, or the body's reaction speed is faster than thinking speed, and a battle is completed in a flash. A set of attack moves. But now, when Xiangzi completes a movement with his right hand, his left hand will attack accordingly, but he is holding the child in his left hand, and as soon as he is about to attack, his brain has to react immediately, stop the movement of his left hand, and resist the body's fighting reaction, which caused a short pause, and at the same time, he had to quickly adjust the movement of his right hand. He is fast enough, but after blocking the opponent's wave of attacks, the next step is still the same. He has to worry about his left hand, resist instinct, protect the child, think, defend. The result is that not only does he have to fight against his opponent, but he also has to compete with himself. In this way, it would be good to be able to exert 1/10 of his strength. But the opponent is still an unconventional master. It's going to die. 1 second is already a long time for masters to fight, but the second they fought, Xiangzi received a heavy punch on the head. It was a real iron fist. This punch made Xiangzi sure of two things. One is that the power of that mechanical arm is really terrifying. The second is, I am very resistant to beating. It stands to reason that such terrifying power combined with the metal fist would smash the head of a normal person, but I was only a little dizzy, and of course it really hurt. However, after losing one step and losing step by step, the Winter Soldier didn't miss the opportunity. Combined with punches and kicks, hitting a set of crackling combos, Xiangzi blocked less and suffered more beatings. Finally, a heavy metal punch hit Xiangzi's abdomen again, and he was directly sent flying. At the same time, Xiangzi felt his left hand was empty, and Ava was pulled over by the Winter Soldier. Xiangzi, who was flying upside down, saw that the Winter Soldier threw Ava out of the alley behind him without turning his head. Seeing Ava being thrown out, Xiangzi was not worried. Because Xiangzi, who was flying upside down, had already noticed people coming from the alley, a few people dressed as armed special forces. And he also understands that a master like the Winter Soldier will naturally find out that someone has arrived, so throwing a child may seem scary, but it is actually a basic operation of a master, and there is no danger. The screaming Ava was caught by a soldier, and quickly gave Ava an injection. At the same time, Xiangzi also fell to the ground and slid a few meters away. There was also the sound of sudden braking from the alley behind Xiangzi, and another soldier appeared. Now the two ends are blocked. Followed by the Winter Soldier, who jumped into the air and stomped over. Xiangzi rolled around to avoid the foot that crushed the concrete floor, took advantage of the momentum, and at the same time raised his right arm to cover his head. Immediately afterwards, he was hit on his arm a few times. Gun! From the corner of the eye, Xiangzi saw the soldier holding Ava disappear. His right arm hurt a little. The Winter Soldier's attack came again. Soldiers on both sides of the alley were pointing their guns at him. Xiangzi really didn't even have time to catch his breath. Xiangzi's choice was to fight in close quarters. If the two were entangled, the soldiers on both sides would have scruples about shooting. Xiangzi, who had freed his hands at this time, could finally give it a go. The Winter Soldier is fast, but thank you, faster. No matter from which angle the Winter Soldier's fists and feet attack, Xiangzi can always seal it with a more ingenious angle or push, slap or bump. Dare to shoot. Then, while blocking, use elbows, shoulders, knees and other parts to fight back. In an instant, the advantages of the two sides were reversed, and the winter soldier fell into a disadvantage and began to be beaten passively. Xiangzi, who went all out, completely suppressed the winter soldier regardless of speed, strength, or skill. But he said that the winter soldier brought a lot of bits and pieces, including weapons under the nape of the neck, abdomen, waist, thighs, and combat boots. Xiangzi interrupted the winter soldier's attempts to take weapons several times. Instead, Xiangzi took advantage of the short stalled, drew the opponent's pistol. Clap clap. Raise your hand to the left side of the alley and count the shots, disabling the weapons of the soldiers at the entrance of the alley. He hit the winter soldier's cheek with a backhanded elbow, knocking off his mask. At the same time, he let go, the pistol fell, and his right hand caught it. A head hammer hit the winter soldier's head, and his right arm was thrown out at the same time. Several shots were fired, and the soldiers at the alley on the right were also disarmed. The winter soldier was knocked out of shape by a hammer, and the empty door was wide open. Of course, Xiangzi would not let go of the opportunity, let go of the pistol, his fists moved like the wind, and punched dozens of punches in a second. It's so fast it's hard to see. And the winter soldier is like a sandbag in the shape of a human, completely unable to fight back. He was tottered by Xiangzi, clinging to the wall. When Xiangzi withdrew his fist, the winter soldier had been knocked out, slipped against the wall and fell to the ground. His head was so swollen that he couldn't see his original appearance clearly. Don't tell me you beat me up, why don't you throw my child away? Your uncle. Xiangzi wiped off the nosebleed from the beating before, threw it on the ground, and pulled out the pistol from the winter soldier's thigh holster. He fired 2 shots at the military vehicle at the entrance of the alley behind him, scaring the soldiers who were trying to poke their heads back. Picking up the backpack that was knocked down before, Xiangzi rushed a few steps, stepped on the wall and ran a few steps on the wall, jumped up suddenly, and when he jumped out of the alley, he was more than 7 meters above the ground. In the air, the soldiers who were covered by cats behind the car could be seen at a glance. Xiangzi pulled the trigger very fast, and took several shots, disabling their spare weapons. When it fell, it kicked on a military vehicle, and it moved the vehicle sideways. 3 soldiers hiding behind the car were directly knocked into the air. The remaining 7 or 8 soldiers, Xiangzi didn't make any effort, and quickly knocked down the remaining 7 or 8 soldiers. This is a normal elite soldier. That guy with long iron arms is a foul at all. He cheated. Xiangzi spat, but he didn't think he was exaggerating. He looked up at the flying helicopter, and by virtue of his energy perception with Ava, he knew that Ava was on that helicopter right now. Shaking his head helplessly, there is no chance now, and if he wants to save Ava, he has to make a plan. In fact, Xiangzi wasn't sure if he was going to rescue him. After all, he was an official, so there was nothing wrong with catching them, but if the child lost him and the quantum phase transition happened, thinking about it, life would be worse than death. Leave here first. Xiangzi ran out of errands, and with his speed, he could quickly disappear into the crowd. At this time, Xiangzi had the time to look at the right arm of the shot, and he found that the bullet hanging on the skin was not a normal bullet. This is anesthesia bomb. Strange, I don't feel it. Expired? Or, anesthetics useless to me. Not long after Xiangzi left, a large group of people arrived. Claiming to be a government department, the scene was sealed off, and the comatose winter soldier and soldiers were taken away, including Xiangzi's nosebleed samples. On the other side, Xiangzi solved the intersection of 3 detergent dealers, and the vehicle he left behind was being inspected by agents of SHIELD. The inspection agent did not find that a few flying ants flew into the car and landed on the driver's seat. 2 hours later, Xiangzi was walking alone on the road, so he changed into a different outfit. At this time, he had already left the city, and with his ability, it was not difficult to go out of the city alone. and his target direction is where Ava is. Although it is far away, this kind of energy connection is similar to navigation, and he can arrive sooner or later. Occasionally, there were cars passing by, and Xiangzi didn't take a ride, until a heavy container truck drove by. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Xiangzi rushed forward and jumped on it. Just lying on the container, it was considered a ride. Xiangzi looked at the sky, thinking about the past 2 days, thinking about how to save Ava. It is not a joke to fight against the Secret Service. Thinking about it, he felt something was wrong, as if someone was staring at him. Sitting up suddenly, he glanced around. As a result, apart from the heavy truck under him, there were no other vehicles around, and there were no helicopters in the sky. It can't be a high-altitude reconnaissance plane, right? Xiangzi stood up and shook his head. Impossible. If I can even feel a high-altitude reconnaissance plane, then I'm a god. It's like someone is staring at me, haunted. While wondering, he casually blasted away a few flying insects that were circling around him. Suddenly, he felt something crawling on his calf, and bit himself. When I lowered my head, I found that there were many ants on the shoes, and they were climbing up. They were quite big, about 3 centimeters long. Pulling up his trousers, he saw an ant was biting non-stop, and new ants were crawling onto his leg and biting him one after another. The ants also came to trouble me. Xiangzi sighed. Although being bitten constantly, these little things couldn't break through Xiangzi's skin, so it wasn't painful, but it was still itchy. Just as he was about to slap these little things to death, Xiangzi was hit on the chin by something, and when he tilted his head from the hit, he caught a glimpse of a small black shadow measured in millimeters out of the corner of his eye. And that little black shadow made Xiangzi wonder if he was hallucinating. Without him, it seemed that it vaguely looked like a person. Winter Soldier, I was beaten up, and I need to recommend collections to restore blood. The little black shadow disappeared in a flash. Xiangzi hurriedly looked around, but then he was hit by the bend of his left leg. Staggering, Xiangzi rolled over and got up, resolving the loss of control of the body's balance. But the attack came again, hitting Xiangzi's back. The force of this blow increased again. Xiangzi's body bowed slightly after being hit. Then he was kicked in the left armpit by a leg, which was a normal human-sized leg. Xiangzi's reaction was not unpleasant, and he was able to use the opportunity to punch back while being beaten, but he missed it, and there was nothing on the left side. It seemed that the human leg had never appeared before. Haunted! Xiangzi roared angrily, "What the are you?" A man's voice suddenly said, "I am your nightmare." Xiangzi listened to the voice to identify the position, and the lightning flashed out with his right hand, and grabbed the little black shadow. But immediately a huge force rushed out from his palm, instantly pushed his hand away, and a person grew bigger from his hand. It was a man in a strange costume, a silver metal helmet, and a red and black suit that looked a bit like a racing suit. At the moment when the strange man grew bigger, he even kicked Xiangzi, but Xiangzi's body remained motionless, not to mention that the strange man lost his balance. That strange man was also a chicken thief. The moment he got bigger and kicked, he suddenly became smaller and disappeared again. Just like that, the weird man was big and small, punching here and there, causing Xiangzi to be beaten passively, but he couldn't help this weird man for a while. During the beating process, Xiangzi discovered that the monster's attack was nothing when he became bigger, and his strength was in the normal human range, but when the monster became smaller, his strength was surprisingly great, and his speed became extremely fast. Moreover, after the monster became smaller, his attack intensity continued to increase. Obviously, he didn't use all his strength before, and he used his strength to fight. But the strange man also discovered that Xiangzi was very resistant to beating, and then the strange man also made adjustments to suit his opponent's situation. The weirdo was big and small, constantly changing his shape, gaining the upper hand for a while. At this time, Xiangzi was no longer as brave and quick as he was when he fought the Winter Soldier, and looked exhausted and helpless. Finally, when the truck passed a bridge in a valley, Xiangzi jumped out of the car. "I won't play with you anymore." Xiangzi slid down the slope. And that strange man rode a flying ant and chased after him. "You think you can escape?" Sliding all the way to the bottom of the valley, Xiangzi turned around and swung his fist, but nothing was hit. "You made a mistake and came to the wrong place," the weird man mocked. "Yes, the vegetation at the bottom of the valley is dense, which is more conducive to hiding and difficult to find for the size of small bugs." Xiangzi didn't say a word, and looked intently, paying attention to his surroundings. The strange man suddenly said, "Where is that girl?" "Well, you will tell." The strange man attacked again, and it seemed that everything had returned to the way it was before. He was still unpredictable, and Xiangzi was still passively beaten. There was a sudden bang. The weirdo was stunned. The moment he just grew bigger, Xiangzi grabbed his right fist. He didn't expect Xiangzi's speed to be faster. Could it be that the opponent didn't try his best before? And this is not over yet. Xiangzi rubbed his thumb and index finger, and easily lifted the opponent's thumb, and took advantage of the situation to grab the strange man's thumb. The button on the right hand becomes smaller, and the button on the left hand becomes bigger. Isn't that right? Xiangzi sneered. "It's fun to beat me up, isn't it?" The weirdo hurriedly clapped his left hand to his right, trying to press the button on the root of his right index finger. But it was too late. Xiangzi neatly pulled and twisted the weirdo's arm behind his back. It was a very common way to capture, but it worked. Then push the weirdo down, put his knees against the weirdo's back, and step on the weirdo's left hand with his left foot. The battle situation reversed instantly. Xiangzi sneered and said, "Do you think I am going to run here? I think too much. I am afraid that you will run away. I have been watching you for a long time. Isn't it just a trick of pressing buttons with left and right hands, and now you are getting smaller? Grandson, you what the heck? Let me see how to open your helmet." The weirdo tried to break free, but it was in vain. He couldn't struggle at all. Xiangzi's strength was beyond his ability to shake. When Xiangzi was tinkering with the strange man's helmet, many flying ants rushed towards Xiangzi's facial features. "It seems that you can still control the ants, how annoying." Xiangzi slapped the ants away with a few casual strokes. With a click, the weirdo's helmet was opened by Xiangzi. It is true that the mechanism to open the helmet is not difficult to find. After all, no one will design his helmet in a way that is difficult to open. Isn't that causing trouble for himself? The helmet opened to reveal the head of a middle-aged man. At this moment, he was completely panicked and said anxiously, "Wait a minute. Boom." According to the old rules, Xiangzi knocked him out with a punch. "What are you?" After clapping his hands, he let out a long breath and said, "What kind of world is this? There are so many tricks." Taking off the middle-aged man's helmet, Xiangzi found something similar to a cochlear implant hanging behind his ear. "Does this person have a hearing impairment? Wear this." Xiangzi took off the thing, put it on his ear, stared blankly, and murmured, "It's interesting." Night. On the wasteland away from the road, a grey station wagon was parked. The rear compartment door was open. Not far from the car, a bonfire was burning and crackling. A man is digging a hole with a shovel. A man lay unconscious on the ground. The person who shoveled the soil and dug the pit was Xiangzi, and he was wearing the clothes of that weird person at this moment. Reading book www.yuyuganshu.com is just the helmet open. Xiangzi suddenly said, "Are you awake? Don't worry, the hole to bury you will be dug soon, soon." The middle-aged man lying on the ground wanted to pretend for a while to wait for the opportunity, so he had to open his eyes and sit up. But when he just sat up, he was startled, and saw that there were densely packed black ants around him. How many were there? There are ants within a diameter of more than 20 meters, and they are not flat, but densely gathered, and their thickness is 7 or 8 centimeters. And it undulates and wriggles like water waves. This is impossible. The middle-aged man exclaimed, subconsciously touched his ears, and the device he was wearing was gone. What's impossible? Xiangzi asked. The middle-aged man looked at Xiangzi, who was wearing his battle suit, shook his head and said, "It's nothing, I was just a little surprised. Even with my invention, controlling ants still needs a lot of practice, and my coma should not exceed 4 hours, you are very talented. Is it difficult? I only used it for a minute." Xiangzi thrust the shovel into the ground, turned around and walked over. The middle-aged man obviously didn't believe it, with a look of sit and watch you blow it up. And every time Xiangzi took a step, the ant colony in the original position would automatically give up an open space, which was just as big as Xiangzi's feet, just right without increasing or decreasing. The middle-aged man saw this scene. Precise control, very good. Xiangzi squatted in front of the middle-aged man, smiled and shook his head. It's not precise control, they just know that the boss is coming, and. To be honest, I didn't expect such a small thing as an ant to be very smart, it's incredible. The middle-aged man raised his eyebrows and said proudly, there are many things you don't know. For example, it won't take long for you to take my invention.